And this is Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services, talking business from my home office in White Plains, New York. And with another episode of our CBSI Services Talking Business. Today we're going to focus on travel. And we have one of our good friends on the line on Zoom from Denver, Colorado, and that is Jason Steele. And Jason is a writer, writes for The Points Guy, Business Insider, Forbes, Smart Travel, Go Banking, Rates, and several others. And you can find much of his work on jasonsteele.com. Jason, how are you today?
I'm doing as well as I can be under the circumstances.
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy time. The last time we spoke was just after you were back in March from a long planned trip that you had to Israel and South Africa. And it was quite an adventure for you to get back using, you were on points tickets. And thinking back about that, is there a final thought that you had about that amazing trip that you had back in mid-March?
Well, we've devoted a lot of thought to, the decisions we made, which were unlike any travel experience I've ever been on, where you're deciding, should I go home or should I continue almost every day? And I think we did it right. I really think that when we left the United States, there was 10 or 12 cases reported in Israel at that time. We were in Israel for a week, and during that week, they gradually shut down to the point where they were completely shut down when we left on March 15th for South Africa. And then at that time, there was no reported cases in South Africa, so we were staying ahead of it. And in South Africa, we weren't in any place that we couldn't maintain social distancing. We were in a very remote part of the country by the Kruger Park, and within the Kruger Park. Even the vehicles we were in with other people were outdoor safari vehicles where the driver was, several feet away from us, in a fresh air environment. So, when the State Department said, Americans should return home immediately, we complied with that. And we booked the next ticket out of there, and we arrived safely and rather uneventfully. If you stripped away our nervousness and anxiety, the flights operated on time, and it was a very uneventful arrival otherwise. We were glad to be home, even though we had to cut our trip a week or two short. And we kind of vowed as a family to continue the trip when it's safe to do so.
Absolutely, a great story. In the 2 months since that time, the much of the travel industry really is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
It's unprecedented, and between airlines running at a small fraction of their capacity, airplanes lined up, parked on runways in major cities,
Mm-hmm.
and then cruise ships that are anchored and so on. Why don't we start with the airline business? There's virtually very limited international travel now. What's your assessment of what's happening in the airline industry?
Yeah, just this morning I'm writing an article for NerdWallet about what air travel is like, and I've been interviewing people who've been traveling in the last few weeks. I saw a headline that said, air travel up 400%, and that sounds dramatic, but it was up from nothing. It had nowhere to go but up. And I looked it up with the TSA statistics. It was less. It was about 0.3% at the lowest in April compared to previous year statistics, and it's now up to something like 2% of previous year statistics. So it's just a tiny fraction to go to visit an airport. And I haven't traveled since March, but my last flight in March was from San Francisco to Denver. And there was nobody in the airport. It was a ghost town. And I've talked to other travelers. I've looked at pictures. I've went to pick someone up at the Denver airport. It's a ghost town. You would think you were there at 3 a.m, even in 3 p.m. It's just empty. And I've seen pictures of Atlanta Hartsfield as well. The busiest airport in the world. It's hard to take a picture with somebody in it. You look down a concourse that could be a mile long, and you see 3 people walking on the concourse. My mom gets on a train at the Atlanta airport. She's the only person on the train, her and my father. I got on just a train to the Denver airport. So from near my house in Denver to the airport, my daughter and I were the only people on a train car that normally accommodates 170. So that's what it's like. It's on one hand, everything is running extremely smoothly, as you can imagine, with very few flights and very few people on the flights. Delays are almost non-existent, except for maybe extreme weather. And yet, it's otherwise post-apocalyptic, and that it's completely empty. It's eerie. If you've ever arrived maybe on a delayed flight at 3 in the morning and walked through an empty airport, that's what every traveler has experienced virtually every flight.
Yes, and we've seen some forecasts of changes to the airport and airline experience that may bring consumer confidence back, that it's safe to travel, frequent sanitization steps when you arrive at an airport, using more contactless check-in, often through mobile phones. And then just going through security, there's concern about the bins having to be cleaned after each usage, which I just can't imagine, if you've been at an airport on a Friday afternoon or another busy time. What are you seeing as the steps the airports and the airlines are going to have to make to build back consumer confidence?
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I believe, are old enough to remember 9/11 and how everything changed after that. And, we look back in retrospect and we see, clearly some of this is, accurately described as security theater to keep people, their confidence. And the parallels here are amazing. I mean, I'm not an immunologist. My wife actually is. She's a microbiologist and immunologist and doctor of pharmacy. But everything I've read, and I've read a lot about this, tells me that we really need to be concerned about people and not things. That this virus is not alive. It can only survive within a human host. Everything I've read says that it dies when exposed to air, when exposed to light, when So I personally am not. For example, everyone likes to cite the study of finding DNA fragments on objects 24 hours later, or even longer in the case of like stainless steel. But the guy who actually wrote that study is from the Rocky Mountain Institute in Montana. He says that doesn't mean you could actually transmit it that way. And in one article I read said he compared it to like a footprint of a dangerous animal rather than the animal itself. Meaning it just shows that it was there. It doesn't show that it's actually there now. And so this person, the person who wrote this study, doesn't bleach his mail and is not worried about those things. And I agree, this is a respiratory disease. You have to inhale particles of bodily fluids in order to get it. Certainly, I suppose, if you rubbed your hand on someone else's bodily fluids and, rubbed your nose and rubbed your eye, that could conceivably be a transmission vector. But all the articles I've read say that they discount that compared to all the known transmission vectors, which would be speaking in front of a person, singing, shouting, yelling, doing that, in an indoor environment where these respiratory particles don't dissipate. So personally, and this is my opinion, I'm not worried about the bin at security, unless I think there's bodily fluid, like someone sneezed on it. And I think having a mask does help. It both helps you preventing transmitting as well as inhaling these respiratory particles, but it also prevents you from touching your mouth and nose should your fingers come in contact with that. So I'm all in favor of hand washing and sanitizers, but I'm not. I personally wonder if a lot of this is the equivalent of security theater, and like where we don't bring a bottle of water on the airplane that's supposed to help us prevent a hijacking of some sort. In the same sense, if they walk up and down and spray something on the airplane, it can't hurt. And sure, I might personally bring bleach wipes onto the plane, as I did in March, and wipe down my seat. I know people who did that before COVID. But I'm not terribly concerned that I'm going to get COVID, from a bin, or if I insert my credit card into a machine, or if I touch the screen on the check-in process. that's a very little safety concern to me personally. But
Yeah.
then again, it might be to other people, and if it is to other people, and the airlines have to do that in order to attract passengers, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Well, I think you're in the frequent traveler segment.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, though, would be some people would be jumping back to do cruises because they enjoy it and they think the risk is small.
Yeah, and my personal bias kind of goes on here because I'm not really a cruise person. Technically I don't suppose I've ever taken a cruise. I took a one-day kind of an excursion once on a small boat, but yeah, I mean the idea. I mean obviously there were huge outbreaks on cruise ships. The idea of being in very close quarters in hallways, elevators, stairways, dining areas. To me, that strikes me as someone who believes in person-to-person contact being the primary vector. That makes me less likely to take a cruise than I've ever been before.
Sure. How do you see hotels being able to come back?
Yeah,
I
I do have friends in the hotel industry, and I think they have a better route. I think people are more likely to travel by car. I think that, frankly, a lot of the hotel business is airline cruise. I'm sure we've all had that experience where we walk through a hotel and we see a dozen uniformed member of an airline crew, or we're on a hotel shuttle and that's all the passengers are crew members, and some of them are not in uniform, and you might not even notice them. So they're getting the airline crews, they're getting business travelers, they're starting to pick up a smattering of leisure travelers. Hotels can't park their aircraft. They can't disable their inventory the way airlines do. So a hotel's gonna be open or closed. They can't just say, we're going to, run at a fraction of our capacity. And I mean, they can, but they won't be saving any money by doing that. The cost is largely the fixed cost of the real estate and the energy and things like that. The labor is largely variable in the sense that they pay for cleanings, essentially by the hour, by the room. You could say the people I know who run business hotels in downtown Denver are saying they're running on a skeleton staff, just a handful of people in a hotel with hundreds of rooms.
Yeah.
And other people I've talked to, they say they check into the hotel, and the hotel says, we won't be cleaning your room every day because of COVID. And travel industry professionals are like, huh? That doesn't make any sense. Cleaning a room would fight COVID. It wouldn't spread COVID. And then upon being pressed, they admit that that's a cost-saving measure.
Yes, and one of the things that really stood out was the impact on Hertz, the leader for decades in the car rental business, a big American name in industry and travel, and their bankruptcy announcement recently. And when we were talking before, you mentioned that really Uber has had a big impact on the car rental industry, more than maybe we thought. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, well, the shared ride industry is dominating, that kind of traveler ground transportation, if you want to call it, in the sense that business travelers like myself will have been avoiding the rental car business for some time if they can get by with a shared ride service for a cost that approximates it. You save the hassle and liability and such of having a car. Parking expenses, gas expenses, toll expenses, all those go away. And frankly, for a business traveler, a lot of it is just simplicity. I'd rather just send in my Uber receipt than my gas, my toll, my car, things like that. So that Hertz would go bankrupt. Yeah, I guess it did surprise me a little bit, but not too much, because I'm sure it was already, their business was down. I like Hertz. They're one of the better rental car companies out there, but yeah, I mean, these companies are highly dependent on business travel, highly dependent on the traveler that just gets the car for 5 days, doesn't really care what it costs. They just get a midsize. They pay whatever fees. They don't really care because it's just an item on their expense report. That's their bread and butter, not the leisure travelers, I don't think, who are very price sensitive. And so when business travel grinds to a halt, as it has, most employees at large corporations that I'm aware of have a travel ban on corporate travel through the end of the year at least. That's, basically like, if everyone fasted, how would the restaurant industry do? I mean, you just can't do any worse than a corporate travel ban if you're a rental car agencies, sadly, for them.
No, that's true. Now it gets into the thought about the reasons people travel to destinations. The cruise ship industry is at a standstill, although Carnival is talking about starting 8 cruises in August, and Walt Disney World is talking about trying to reopen in mid-July,
Mm-hmm.
and other destinations. The conference business seems to still be at a standstill, and spectator sports, which a lot of people are destinations over the summer and into the fall with college NFL football, all are unsure whether spectators are going to be able to attend those games and therefore need to travel to them. How do you see the, kind of these big destination activities being able to reopen?
Yeah, there are Universal Parks has opened. Disney properties are planning on reopening. They'll have social distancing. People will be wearing masks. There's a funny video showing Disney stormtrooper, employees in stormtrooper costumes playfully enforcing social distancing. So they'll make the best of it. I don't fault them for doing that. And that crowds will return slowly, but probably at a roughly the same rate as capacity is available, because you're talking about limiting to 10, 15, 20% of normal capacity, which is normally very crowded, as we all know. But in terms of spectator sports and concerts and other live crowded activities, yeah, same thing. At best, you're looking at 10, 15, 20% capacity, and that's at best. They're still going to congregate in the concessions, the rest areas, any security screening, I suppose. That's going to make it really challenging. And sometimes I wonder if a lot of these organizations should just kind of throw in the towel on 2020 in terms of attendance. Maybe playing to empty stadiums, but attendance just doesn't seem, I don't plan on attending, let's just put it that way. And I love to go to games.
Yeah, no, we miss going to baseball, and I cover college football, and we're concerned about where that's going to be in September. And I know it affects you personally in that you've been running a terrific conference
Mm-hmm.
for media people who follow the credit card industry and the travel industry. We enjoyed participating last year in Washington. And tell us about your plan. I know you wanted to have it in Denver this year, but you're looking at alternate plans.
Yeah, it was supposed to be in Denver the week before Thanksgiving, and there's just 3 reasons I don't think it's going to happen. I at the moment, the city of Denver would be illegal. If I wanted to hold it, it would be illegal, and nobody knows when that restriction on large indoor gatherings would be lifted. And I don't think anyone really expected to be lifted this year. Were it legal, it would require social distancing measures, 6 feet apart, wearing masks. I don't want to attend that conference, let alone be the producer of it. I don't think I would enjoy being indoors with a mask all day, and I don't think it would be conducive to conducting business and socializing with my colleagues. And then finally, even if I did even if I was really in favor of that and it was legal, I'd still be asking, people to travel, and the corporations that, largely banks, credit card issuers, affiliate marketing companies, credit bureaus, credit scoring companies, just like any other corporation in America, they're banning their employees from traveling for good reason. What if they're immunocompromised? What if they have family members, household members who are immunocompromised? They'd be risking their lives. And, I'm passionate about the credit card industry, but nobody should risk their life to attend my conference. I'll admit that. So rather than, try to swim upstream there, I've decided to I'm pretty close to the decision to switch to an online event. It's not going to be a virtual conference. It's not going to be, sitting in front of your screen for 8 hours listening to people talk. It's going to be like hard times in the past. It's going to be interactive. Our goal is to facilitate business, to facilitate interaction and socializing. I don't think anyone has the patience to stare at their computer screen for 8 hours a day. So we're going to tailor this event to the medium, and we're going to do maybe something along the lines of 3 or 4 hours a day for the better part of a week. And that will also accommodate people in different time zones, right? I don't want people on the East Coast, asking them to participate in their dinner time, nor do I want people on the West Coast to ask them to participate, at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. But if we do it around midday, we could accommodate every time zone in North America. We could, prevent people from really being fatigued and worn out from staring at a screen all day. We could have, a lot of great sessions, keynotes, panels, roundtable discussions, I think lend themselves quite well to Zoom. I want to have social activities, likely in smaller groups. We're not going to get 100 people in a Zoom chat. That wouldn't work. But we could have our Zoom or another platform. We could have those online conferences grouped by theme with maybe 5 to 10 people in a format that works much, much better. So people who are interested in subprime credit cards might have a chat room, and people who are interested in business cards could have a chat room, and airlines rewards. And the next day maybe we group it by geography, East Coast and West Coast, and maybe by industry, card issuers and affiliate marketing and credit bureaus, credit scoring companies. So there's a lot of creative ways I think we can really tailor this to the medium. Obviously, holding it for 3 or 4 hours a day will allow people to get other work done, to interact with their family and coworkers, as they normally would throughout the day. I'm even a little bit optimistic that we'll get a higher caliber of speakers when we're asking for, maybe half an hour of Zoom, than spend 2 or 3 days traveling to Denver. Same thing with attendees. Maybe we'll get more attendees when we're looking for a few hours a day on Zoom, rather than a few $1,000s and several days of travel. So, and even entertainment, right? We had a fun event, you'll recall, last year where we had a comedian and we had a lot of people get up on the stage and have these short presentations. There's a lot of out-of-work actors and comedians out there, and athletes and such. Maybe it wouldn't be too hard to get someone to give us an introduction, someone quite notable perhaps, if you're just asking them to Zoom from their living room for a few minutes. Would that be fun?
Well, I think you got an interesting plan. We certainly at CVSI look forward to helping, participating perhaps with the conference, in our segment, which is credit card benefits and customer service. And I know we'd love to support you on that effort.
We'd love to have you involved, Ken. I mean, CVSI is obviously a leader in this field, and Jack Honar, who did a roundtable last year, everyone thought he was a fascinating speaker, and they loved participating.
Absolutely. Jack does a great job, and we had really a good conference in Washington, and look forward to the event in November if it is virtual. And Jason, maybe to sum up, maybe I know you've been writing. You mentioned one article. What have been some of your recent writing subjects and some of the topics that you're going to be looking at very soon?
Yeah, I've looked at, I had an article published or will be published recently in NerdWallet about how I think motels are going to be big. You have an outside entrance, you don't have a swimming pool, you don't have a gym, you don't have a restaurant, all those things that don't really lend to social distancing. Elevators, hallways. Take a road trip, visit a motel, see a national park, a state park, go bicycling, go hiking, and maintain your social distance and safety throughout the whole experience. And I think that's pretty easy to do. I'm writing about the airport and airline experience today. I'm writing about the hotel experience, how that changed. I'm writing about how credit cards, rewards, and benefits are changing. Not so much say necessarily the cardholder benefits, but more like how you can redeem your rewards, statement credits for different maybe stay-at-home friendly options like like food and entertainment, streaming, and things like that. What's happening with the economic side. 0% APR offers are getting harder to get. Credit card approvals are getting harder to get. The credit card industry is deeply afraid of a future, a deepening economic crisis and defaults. So those are the topics that keep me up at night.
Well, certainly we appreciate hearing your insight in what's happening in the travel and the credit card industry and in the benefits business. And you're writing for some terrific publications, The Points Guide, Business Insider, Forbes, Smarter Travel. And of course, a lot of your content is available on your website, jasonsteele.com. Final thought for us today, Jason?
I'm an optimistic person by nature, and I think we're all going to get through this. The travel industry, of course, is just barely starting to rebound. I don't think the credit card industry is going to fare as bad as most people feared. We've had encouraging unemployment numbers, so I'd like to believe that the worst is behind us and that things are going to get better. We're all going to be, thankful for what we have, even if it's a little bit different or a lot different this year. And then next year, we're going to be even more thankful as things return to normal.
I look forward to that. Jason Steele, always a pleasure to talk with you on CBSI Services Talking Business, and thank you. And I look forward to staying in touch and reading your articles on many national and international publications. So for our team at CBSI Services, we're based in Harrison, New York. We have insurance-based benefit products that are found on many credit card programs. And we have a terrific customer service team. I always want to give a shout out to them, taking care of our customers throughout this COVID-19 situation. And so again, for CBSI Services Talking Business, this is Ken Kraetzer. Have a good day, everybody.